I'm Ursula Royteen.
Subscribe to us on YouTube for our can't miss clips. KIRO Radio 97.3 FM. News and talk, powered by the Pacific Northwest.
The Big Lead is brought to you by 3010 Weight Loss for Life.
The Dori Monson Show on KIRO Radio. This is The Big Lead.
Coming to you from the Carter Subaru studio and streaming on Facebook Live. Welcome. Welcome to The Big Show. I'm a little ticked off today. A little fired up. Not more than a little fired up. I'm kind of angry. Let's get right to The Big Lead.
The Big Lead. I sense a Dori rant coming on.
I'm very defensive of this radio show. I'm very proud of this radio show.
As you should be.
And I also am very confident that when we talk about things, it is grounded in a ton of research, loads of facts, and that we don't make wild, baseless allegations on the show. And so I kind of cryptically mentioned this yesterday, but I want to push back hard against a bunch of listeners sent this to me. There was a meeting earlier this week with the King County 5th District Republicans. And at that meeting, King County Councilwoman Kathy Lambert, according to the minutes of the meeting, she said a couple things about this radio show, and she now denies that she said them. And I'll get into that in just a couple of minutes here. But Kathy Lambert's always said that she's a fan of the show, that she likes what we do. But as I was reading the minutes, and as I said, a bunch of listeners sent this to me, this is what is quoted in the minutes from this meeting. Dori Monson has featured some stories on his program which makes the new sheriff, Mitzi Johanknecht, looked bad. Kathy said that former Sheriff John Urquhart did not give Mitzi any help in transitioning to be the new sheriff. He left her with a huge mess on her first day, both a physical mess with an office in disarray and a workload mess with lawsuits and other problems he didn't inform her about. Kathy said that many of the stories circulating now about Mitzi are not true. And if we have any questions, feel free to ask Kathy. She was there on Mitzi's first day, and she can tell us the rest of the story. She believes all this trouble is being created to make Mitzi look bad so that John Urquhart can run again. So what this is suggesting by a Republican to a group of Republicans, if the minutes are accurate, is that our show has had some stories that are not true. And the other line that said Kathy Lambert believes all this trouble is being created to make Mitzi look bad so that John Urquhart can run again. That suggests that somehow Urquhart was pulling our strings he's been a source on one or two of our stories, but most of the stories had absolutely nothing to do with him and have been the result of fantastic dogged reporting by Carolyn Osorio. And we don't have anybody pulling our strings on this show. So Nicole talked to Kathy Lambert for a long time last night because I was really ticked off about this. And then I called and spoke with Kathy Lambert on the phone this morning. And I told her, I said that I'm really upset about this, and I'm going to go on the air this afternoon, and I'm going to correct the record. And I asked Kathy Lambert if she wants to come on and give her side of things, why she said this. And she says, well, I never said any of those things. And I said, well, that's what's in the minutes of this meeting. And she said, well, whoever transcribed the minutes was wrong because I never said that. I like your show. I go, great. Come on and tell me that this afternoon. And she said, well, I'd have to talk to Mitzi first because I don't want Mitzi to feel blindsided. And I told her I couldn't care less. if Mitzi Johanknecht feels blindsided because we have invited her to come on the show at least a dozen times as we've been covering these stories. And she, during the campaign, promised unequivocally she will come on the show every single time we call. She is a stinking liar. And then I see another story that is on our website today where Mitzi Johanknecht is again just blatantly lying because there's this links database system, and Mitzi Johanknecht sent a letter to all of the King County Council members and said, we are getting out of this links database because we're afraid that ICE might get some names, and even though there's no citizenship status info in this database, the undersheriff sent an email to all of the sheriff's personnel and said, we're getting out of this database. In neither one of those emails did they say this is temporary. Well, there was an uproar. And we broke this story on our show, and we had a bunch of cops who said this puts our lives in danger. And I accurately characterized this as the sheriff, Mitzi Johanknecht, cares more about illegals than she does the lives of police officers. Well, now she is in a panic because she knows that my characterization of this is 100% unrefutable and accurate. And so now she is just lying shamelessly, saying, oh, no, it was temporary. It was always going to be temporary. It was a bunch of bull. If it was going to be temporary, they would have said that in the letter to all the King County Council members. They would have said it in their letter to the sheriffs, detectives, and deputies. They never once said it. But once I pointed out that Mitzi Johanknecht cares more about illegals than about cops, they realized we have a nightmare on our hands. So that's when they switched it over and said, okay, we're going to get back in. And now she's just telling lies and saying that it was always intended to be temporary. She's a proven liar. And I'm sick of it. I'm really sick of it. And frankly, I'm really annoyed. And again, Kathy Lambert says she didn't say the things that are in the minutes of this meeting. Well, I've given Kathy Lambert a chance to come on the show and explain how could this be so wrong. To say that Dori Monson has featured some stories which makes the new sheriff look bad. Well, yeah, that's true, because the stories about her do look bad. But when she says Kathy believes all this trouble is being created to make Mitzi look bad, wrong. All this trouble is because we have gotten an unbelievable array of tips, and we have been doing what you're supposed to do in the media, and that's to be a watchdog of government and to let people know that there is a serious public safety hazard with Mitzi Johanknecht as sheriff, that there is an incredible screwing over of the taxpayers when she pays her chief of staff, Liz Roca, gives her a massive raise from what her predecessor got to $171,000 a year. A person who, frankly, is one of the worst I have ever seen in that type of position in government work, Liz Roca. She, from yelling at my producer to refusing to talk to me because I ambushed them when we exposed the Dow Constantine using sheriff's personnel as his personal Uber. And now they're upset with me and my show. I couldn't care less. I am not here to make government officials happy. I am not here to do their bidding. And nobody is pulling our strings. And to suggest that any of the stories about Mitzi Johanknecht are not true is infuriating, because these have all been double and triple checked and vetted with our reporter Carolyn Osorio at the vanguard of these stories. And so I wanted to invite you to come on here, Carolyn, because you were on the phone with me when we called Kathy Lambert this morning to see if she wanted to come on and explain. She now says she did not say the things that are in the minutes for that meeting. I don't know what to believe at this point.
Well, what's troubling is that we wanted to give Kathy the opportunity to, if she didn't say it, to come on and say, hey, I didn't say it. We said this is not a setup for you. We're not going to ambush you. Just say, because basically, our reporting, my reporting, your show is basically being called on the carpet,
Yes.
And so she wasn't willing to do that. And the problem is here as a public official is that, we've gotten so many tips. It's like a relay race where you get the baton and the sources are like, okay, here's the baton. We've gotten about 20 batons.
Yes.
And we can't just say, no, we can't run with it. We got to go talk to Mitzi. No, we got to do the research, which we've done. And so, Kathy, although I understand her position, she doesn't want to throw anybody on the bus. Neither do we. We vetted every single thing. And the retractions would have been, we know that Liz called our boss and complained about us and saying unfair reporting. But she didn't ask for a retraction.
No, and because there's nothing to retract, and there's nothing that's unfair. And it's unbelievable to me that this Liz Roca, who was, had to go from TV station to TV station to TV station when she was working in the media, but she fancied herself an investigative reporter. And now that we're doing that sort of work as investigative reporters of government officials, and as I said, that's never happened to me in my career that I'm aware of, where a government official has called our bosses and said that we're being unfair. And, of course, our response was, come on the show and explain one thing that's unfair or incorrect. They cannot do it. They will not do it because they cannot do it, because there's nothing that we have covered that has been untrue. And so and the thing about Kathy Lambert, as I said, she says that she likes the radio show, that, she didn't say the things she said. But that is what is in a public record. Yeah. And a bunch of listeners sent these minutes to me, and that's what's circulating right now. And I am not going to let false allegations about this radio show stand. And why Kathy Lambert doesn't want to come on and explain either I didn't say these things or I did say these things and here's why, I truly cannot figure out that strategy.
Well, and here's the thing. She did say that she wanted to do her research and she would come on tomorrow. And so we'll see if she does.
She didn't unequivocally say that. She said, what if I come on tomorrow?
Well, I've had many conversations with her, and she seems like a straight, she can be a straight shooter.
I've always liked her.
So it's up to her to. But the problem that I have is this isn't personal. This is not. In the paragraph, it was like, people are doing this against the sheriff, and it's like, you know what? We didn't go down this road looking to throw mud on the sheriff. We were following up on tips on Dow Constantine, and we just couldn't ignore them anymore.
And that's the important point, is the coverage that we started was about Dow Constantine using the security detail as his Uber while he was going out drinking every night. And that was the story. And as we started pulling that thread, first of all, Mitzi and Liz Roca's response was, it was so irrational, it led me to believe that there's something really funky going on. And then as we started pulling that thread, it just started unraveling, and we started getting the dozens and dozens of tips that both you and I have received, and that's led to the stories about the two command staffers that she put into those command roles who resigned within a year, was it, of being appointed?
Well, yeah, they were appointed when she was elected, and then they resigned within a month of each other, which was unheard of. And here's the thing that refutes this whole John Urquhart, whatever, is that she basically appointed those people, and they both resigned.
Yeah, they were Mitzi's
people.
They
were Mitzi's people.
Yeah.
And this is where if Lambert came on with us, this is what I would say. This reporting is accurate. Her two people, which we got both of the documents to prove, they resigned, and they resigned basically unhappy with the way the department was going.
Yes.
They were her people. The other thing is...
And you, I just want to add, you exclusively obtained the resignation letters, the other document that made some allegations about racism.
12-page, racism. And let's add to that that the allegations were against the undersheriff, and that he was actually punished for that. After the investigation, communications were contrary to department policy, and that the sheriff has taken corrective action. Whatever that basically means that he had done something incorrect, and they were fixing it. That is on the record. That happened. That's not us just being Urquhart fans. That actually happened.
Yeah.
So I think that, she really needs to come on, Kathy needs to come on and set the record straight, and maybe, talk to us about, hey, what exactly are you saying we didn't report correctly?
Well, there is nothing that she can say because everything has been accurate. Some of the other unrefutable facts are they have 70 openings now for deputies. I've had people in very high positions of power who have told me that this is a tremendous public safety issue in the county. This is a problem that has just come up since Johanknecht was named sheriff. And here's what I fear with Kathy Lambert is I don't think any county official wants to come on because I will not allow them. I will not have them come on with any conditions of what I will and will not ask. And I would ask about Dow Constantine's personal Uber. I think that there is such a reign of terror with Dow Constantine and an atmosphere of retaliation within the county that I think even some members of the county council are just scared to death of this guy. And that's when you have that kind of unchecked power, that is something that the public should know about. And that's exactly what we've been reporting here.
Yeah, I mean, there's no question that I think that based on sources, based on people I've talked to, that, the fear runs deep within, and we can see that with the links. We were talking to some council members who really just felt blindsided and didn't want to say anything because they just were like, what? And so we can see that coming through, and that the links database was turned back on. And so I think that there's a lot that will be revealed, that we're working on right now. And, why we do this, it's because, you brought up a story about how, when you were little, this was about a week ago, and your mom had to use, find cushions, change in the cushions to get, that's why you're a watchdog, because you remember what it was like for your mom to struggle. And people have asked, like one of my sources, why do you, what's Carolyn like? Well, I can tell you, my dad was taking my reporter hat off. He was a police officer when I was a kid. And, I just remember having so much respect for the office, which I still do. Public safety, yes. And
I want to be a watchdog of government.
Yeah.
First and foremost.
So we will continue, following the stories, whether or not, they want to make claims that, we're Urquhart fans or whatever, that's not the point of it. The point of it is to get the documents, bring them to light, and, make hopefully other people will do their jobs in, making the decisions that need to be made.
Yeah. Well, I just, I think that a lot of this gets a free pass elsewhere in the media because I think that much of the media is in the pocket of the one party that controls this region, and we are not. So, again, Mitzi Johanknecht, come on my show anytime you want. You want to refute anything that we've said, go right ahead. You try. Kathy Lambert, if you didn't say what's in the meeting minutes, then explain to me how they got it so wrong in the minutes. But if anybody ever criticizes this radio show, they better be ready to defend it. Because, I'm talking about government officials. People can have opinions all they want about this show. But government officials, you're going to say something on the record about this radio show that is absolutely 100% not true, then you better be ready to defend it. If you didn't say it, then come on and explain how the meeting minutes got so desperately wrong here. I appreciate all your great work on this, Carol. It's very important stuff.
Thanks, Dori.
Thank you. Carolyn Osorio and the open invitation to the sheriff, to Kathy Lambert, to Liz Roca. I want to find out how you got $171,000 a year, Liz. How are you making the same amount as the governor? I know that you have no law enforcement experience. You've been buddies with Mitzi for 20 years. And is that all it takes to make $171,000 when you are quite literally the worst person I have ever seen in a job like this in government? I'd love to find out how you got $171,000 of taxpayer money every single year. Yeah, I got a lot of questions, and we'll keep asking them whether people like it or not. And that is your big lead for today.
The Big Lead on KIRO Radio.
A local man down in Centralia area, he wanted to burn a beehive on his property. And that has turned into a legal nightmare for him. He's going to tell us the story next on the Dori Monson Show.
This hour of the Dori Monson